Welcome back, everyone, to day 2 of our Your Best Year 2026, an online retreat delivered by Coaching Minds and our wonderful coaches. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Carly Brown. Carly, thank you so much for your time today. It's 10 a.m. on a Sunday, it's your weekend, and I really appreciate you being here to deliver a powerful session for everybody who's tuned in and also watching the replay down the line. So thank you, Carly.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm really looking forward to the session.
Brilliant. And before we jump straight into the gold standards of success and everything that you've got here for us today, Carly, really excited to see what you've got in store for our audience and our guests. I'd like just to do a bit of a recap from yesterday. So if you are tuned in, I'd love to know, what was your key takeaway from day 1? We had 3 wonderful sessions. We opened up with our panel discussion on success. We looked at different perspectives and different angles and things to think about with regards to success. And we came to a bit of a conclusion as a group that success is about progress and that success is defined differently by everyone. So no matter what we're going through, what we're aiming for, what our goals are, some of them are small, some of them are big, progress and success looks different for everyone. And we also talked about how we could change that word of success to plug in a couple of the values and things that really matter to us in our life. And that moved nicely on to Jane's session, where Jane talked to us about mindset, the difference between fixed and growth mindset, and how we can start to rewire and reauthor our stories for a better narrative that we can take into the next 365 days. And then from that, Ed stepped forward and he talked about clarity, how to understand our values, and the importance of carrying our values into 2026 and the year ahead, and how these act as a compass to help us gain that clarity. And we were asked to take away one key word that was going to mean and anchor us for the year ahead. So what was your key takeaway from everything that was shared? Because what we're going to be doing today with Carly's going to be building upon that, and we're going to be looking at how we can take our mindset, our definition of success, and our values into defining and creating goals that are going to work and that are sustainable over the next year. And on that note, Carly, I think I'm going to hand it over to you. We've got a couple of people tuned in. So Adele saying hello, Cindy saying good morning. Thank you both for being here. I'm going to hand the stage over to you, Carly, just to share a little bit about yourself with our audience and then get into what we've got today. Really looking forward to it, Carly. It's going to be great.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I think the topics you've talked about there, they really play into how we set goals, don't they? So kind of really good to have it in this order with the work. So good morning, everyone. My name is Carly. I'm an organizational psychologist by background. So I spend a lot of my time kind of looking at the psychology of how we think, how we feel, and how we behave in the workplace, and how that kind of links into performance, motivation, and all sorts. I actually started my career working in prisons, and that work was very much around understanding the root causes of crimes when things had gone wrong for individuals and crimes had been committed, what kind of was at play there. And I think that was probably my first real taste of people wanting to make big shifts in their lives. Lots and lots of people in the kind of prison system don't want to be there. They want to kind of make positive shifts in their life. So you would see people with big goals, big things that they wanted to achieve, and to some extent having the motivation to want to do that, of course. But it didn't always translate into behavior shifts, and more often than not, you would see individuals, unfortunately, coming back into the system. And it sort of opened my eyes that wanting and desiring a goal is not really enough. And in more recent years, I work with lots of leaders and teams and individuals in the coaching space too, who want to make these shifts. And what we see is that quite often we can limit ourselves before we get going with things like considering that maybe we don't have enough time or enough resource to achieve these goals, some of those limiting beliefs that I know will have came through in Jane's session yesterday. But when you see people that are achieving their goals, they're very intentional in both their mindset and focus, but also the way that they create their goals, some of the kind of conditions within their goals, if you like, and also the pathways that they take to get there. So I'm really kind of excited to bring this to life for you today. Can we go on to the next slide, please, Paul?
Yeah.
So the tool that we wanted to talk about today to help with thinking about our goals and how we achieve them comes from hope theory. And I guess if we just take that word hope for a minute, I'd invite you to consider what that word brings up for you. Perhaps you can share in the comments. What does the word hope bring up for you? What words do you associate with hope? For me, it brings up things like optimism, belief in the future. I don't know about you, Paul. Any kind of thoughts there about hope?
Yeah, no, belief was coming into my mind, faith as well.
Yeah.
I like to visualize things, so just seeing that bright light as well,
Yeah.
through whatever we're going through.
Yeah, love that. So being able to kind of think about that bright light and the future, and hope is all about kind of moving things forward into the future. So hope is it's related to traits that we have, but it's also a motivational way of thinking that we can teach, and we can use models with our coaches and with ourselves to help to channel that hope towards goals that we have. So you can see a definition that's on the screen there, which is that hope is the belief that your future will be better than today. So there's something about progress and moving forward, but also crucially that you have the power to make it so. So two very important kind of parts of the definition there. If we move on to the next slide. So there are different components that help to build hope for us. And hope is massively linked to our resilience. When you look at the empirical research around hope, we see that when individuals have high hope and they have these hopeful ways of thinking, which we're going to kind of have a look at in the moment for our own goals, that they are much more likely to achieve the goals that they set out to pursue. They have a kind of a buffer, if you like, with their mental health, because they can see a positive future state and things that they can do to get there. So let's have a look at some of those core components on the next slide. Thank you, Paul. So hope, the feeling of hope is made up of three things. So first of all, we need to have some form of a goal or a shift that we want to see for the future. And today we're going to be thinking about those in terms of personal goals, things that we have control over. So we need to have a core goal, and that's really the cornerstone of hope, having that future focus. But then that needs to be combined with agency, which is a kind of self-belief, really, that we can do things that would help to make that goal achievable, that future state. So it's a belief in ourselves and willpower to get there, to achieve that goal. And then also that we need to have multiple pathways to get there. We need to be able to channel some psychological flexibility to see that there are different routes we could take to achieve that goal, and also to do something that we call mental contrasting, where we're thinking about the goal, we really want to achieve that goal, but we understand that our reality right now is quite different, and we may face obstacles along the way. And hope theory and hope mapping, which we're going to be looking at today to achieve our goals, combines all of those parts to think about what the goal is. How do we get there? Why is it important? What are the different ways that we can achieve that goal, work towards it? And also, what are the obstacles that might get in our way? And how do we plan for those to help us to keep going? So if we move on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm sure all of you will have come across SMART goals previously. I'm not sure, Paul, have you had much success with SMART goals in your life before?
So not really, no. I tend to extend it to what I call smarter goals, which has been a little bit more useful for me, which is adding excitement and reward on the end of it. So
yeah. I
But
love those additional components. Go on.
Yeah. No, it's because SMART does help. It's a good way to get a framework, but sometimes I haven't achieved from a SMART goal. So.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, and definitely in the kind of the leaders and individuals that I've worked with, I think that's a kind of common experience. So the framework SMART comes from goal setting theory, which is all of the research around kind of how we set goals and how we use those to motivate ourselves to take action. And goal setting theory is widely considered to be one of the kind of cornerstone models, if you like, about human motivation. And SMART is trying to take some of the factors that we know are important in meaningful goals that move us forward, and kind of make it memorable for people. But one of the challenges with SMART is that it can become a little bit tick boxy and kind of robotic sometimes. I love the idea of adding in excitement there. It can become something that kind of limits us in a way rather than helps us to move forward. So when you look at the research of what works in goal setting, there are some specific areas. So the first part on the screen there should say specific. So our goals need to be specific. Vagueness is not really our friend when we're wanting to use a goal to motivate us to move. So rather than saying something like, I want to improve my well-being, we would look specifically at which behaviors or which components of our life would help to improve our well-being. What would that look like if we were to achieve it? So it might be saying something like, for the next 3 months, I will go to bed at a particular time to allow myself to get 7 hours of sleep. So we look at kind of a behavior change we're going to make, and then something specific that helps to achieve the goal. So we need a goal that's specific. The second part is measurable. So this kind of correlates with the SMART framework. So it needs to be observable. How will we know when we've achieved that goal? So we don't have to get too hung up, I think, on metrics, but just understanding that we need to be able to see when we've succeeded in that space. The third area is challenge. So we need goals to stretch us a certain amount and to move us into that stretch zone, not to be too kind of stretching, such that it becomes something that is perhaps unachievable or scares us, and also not too unambitious either. So we're looking for a goal that's maybe around a 7 to 8 out of 10 in terms of challenge and stretch. Linking back to some of the things you were saying there earlier on, Paul, it needs to be motivating. It needs to be something that excites us, that's meaningful, that is linked to our values or the things that we really want in our world. So something that's personally motivating. And this is where organizational goals, which are top down, can sometimes fall because they're not necessarily personally motivating for an individual. And the final component that I've added in there is it needs to be planned, as in we need to have these pathways and a kind of a strategy, if you like, of how we get there that takes account of reality. Sometimes when we set goals, we do so in a bit of a vacuum, where we're looking at this ideal state, this thing we really want to achieve, but we're not always planning for the realities and the obstacles that will get in our way. So we need to take account of some of that as well. So if we can bring some of those components into setting our goals, then we're off to a pretty good start, I would say. So if we go on to the next slide, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So the exercise which we will be working through today is called a hope map. So a hope map was popularized by a man called Shane Lopez, which is looking at how do you take this theory and the research that we know that this really helps with our goal attainment. How do you actually do it? And it's a really nice, simple exercise. You can do a hope map on a blank piece of paper traditionally, but today we're going to use some visualization with that as well, because imagination is really the vehicle of hope. So that's what helps our brains to see where we're going and kind of think about where we are now. So there are 4 main areas of this that we're going to work through. The first of all is thinking about the goal itself. What is it that we really want to achieve for ourselves? And we'll look at some questions around that to try and bring in some of those steps we've just looked at a minute ago in terms of things that make goals meaningful. Then we're going to have a look at some of the pathways that we could take to get there. And of course, the obstacles, the drift, if you like, using this image that we've got here. So we've got a lovely sunset as our goal. The pathways is the different routes our boat could take, if you like, to get towards that goal, and the obstacles that might crop up along our way. The 4th step is then looking at if-then plans. So if that obstacle appears, what will I do that will continue to move me into action? And so that's the 4 steps that we'll be working through. We move on to the next slide. Thank you. So the first step then is to think about a goal that is really meaningful to you as an individual. So I'd encourage you to think about which single area of your life would make the biggest positive difference if you were to able to move that forward this year. So a single area of your life that's really important and would make the biggest positive difference if you could move that forward this year. So I'm just going to encourage you to think about that, and please do share in the comments if you have some ideas. Paul, do you have any initial topics cropping up for you?
Yeah, in terms of my big goal for this, in terms of areas, I think it's personal development this year, to develop myself as an individual.
Lovely. So personal development, something that's important for you at the moment.
Yeah, no, we've got a lot over the past 5 years. We've built the foundations for coaching minds. We've got our programs. We've got everything kind of ready and in place. And I think I need to make a shift from actual career, physical goals to actually looking at myself so I can be the best version of me when we deliver what we do here at Coaching Minds. So it's going inward rather than outward. So.
Fantastic. So time to think about you and the steps that you want to take to move forward. For me, my biggest goal this year is related to my business. So last year I took the big leap and moved into being self-employed and starting a business, both for myself and also with a trusted friend as a business partner. And it's the first time in my career that I've done that. I've always been employed by others and kind of employed as a psychologist. And now is my chance to really think about which areas of psychology do I want to focus on to bring to life for the world. So there are several areas there. One of my real passions is around thinking about how I can make some of the stuff I do in corporate spaces with teams to do with positive psychology, which is what we're looking at today. How do I make that accessible in schools? How do we help our younger individuals to think about some of these skills, these ways of thinking that might help them to navigate the world going forward? So that's a real passion project of mine. So that's my kind of goal area. So if you've identified that single area of your life, I'd encourage you to really visualize that goal, that area, and think about it in terms of, you got to the end of the year, say by December, what would success look like in that space in observable terms? So what would this look like practically for you to achieve that goal? Again, Paul, any thoughts for yourself?
So I just think bigger confidence, more aligned. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to think and reflect on that. It's quite a deep, reflective question to get into that future state. Now, what does that look like?
What isn't it? How would we? What would make it observable? So perhaps whilst you're thinking, if I share mine, so the idea is around trying to make positive psychology accessible in schools, as you can see there. And I thought, what would success look like in that space this year? And maybe it would look like just having a small number of practical resources that had been tested in schools in a small way. So I've gone with 3. It feels a bit arbitrary putting a random number, but I thought 3 is better than 1 for me, and not too testing, but still stretching me to think about how do I make this something that's a little bit bigger and a little bit more widespread. So I've gone with 3 resources that I want to test.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So when you're visualizing your end of the year, we want to be thinking about end state language, as I say. So by December, by whatever your timeline is for your goal, by then, what will you have, or what will you have done that's different from where you are now? And also encourage you to think about that stretch that we talked about earlier on. So what on a scale of 1 to 10, how stretching does your goal feel for you? How could you make it around a 7 to 8 out of 10? This is why I went with the number 3 resources that have been tested and shared. That's a stretch for me, but it's not so scary that I can't necessarily move forward, or perhaps unachievable. Also thinking about, why does that goal really matter for you? What is it about that goal that's important, not just on paper, but to your values, to your world? Why is that goal important? Again, Paul, any reflections from yourself?
Yeah, so not just when you're sharing there, think about the stretching and making it a 7, 8. I've actually stretched myself a lot. So what I'm looking to measure is, I want to read 52 books this year that are aligned with business. So basically a book a week that is aligned with business, spirituality, or personal development. So I tried this last year. I got to 38. So I'm trying again to get to the 52, because there's many books out there and we can learn a lot and grow a lot. So yeah, in terms of the why does it mean something to me, is because, I want to turn up the best version of me and with the best energy, so I can serve and make a difference to people in a better way, in a more improved way.
Fantastic. So yeah, it's meaningful. It's about how you show up for others, the knowledge that you're acquiring. There was also something in my mind, because you mentioned you got to 38 last year and this year you're going for 52. There was a question for me around how you motivate yourself to improve on your own performance. Is there something there around that kind of, you've benchmarked at 38? Can I stretch it and get further?
So yeah, it has increased my motivation, my determination, because I can look back and I can see, right, why didn't I hit it? What were the weeks that I didn't read? Where could I have picked up, maybe instead of doing one a week, right, actually I'm going to read 2 this week because I've got more time, and then miss 1 next week. So how do I change the way in which I'm moving forward to deliver this? What are my distractions? How do I cancel some Netflix series just to spend that time to read a little bit more? Things like that. So
fantastic. You're going to be a pro at this hope map, because you've already looked at the pathways, what's got in your way previously, and how you can kind of get around some of those very real obstacles. I love that. And if we move on to the next area, thank you for sharing, Paul. And again, please do share in the chat if you've got some goals in mind. So once we've defined our goal and we thought about this in terms of making it specific, making it challenging, it's motivating for us, we then need to think about pathways. So the idea is to think of at least 3 different routes or steps that would take you towards that goal. So perhaps they are either or. In terms of pathways, I could do this one, or I could do this one, or maybe it's breaking it down into smaller actions that will take you towards that goal. So yeah, I encourage you to think about different ways, even if they feel that they're not perfect or they're slightly unconventional. I think there's something there around not limiting ourselves to the perfect pathway. It's certainly something that takes me off course. And when I was thinking about the pathways towards my own goal, a couple of the ones that I've got on screen there felt imperfect to me, or I'm not sure about that, if I would do that or take that forward. So the first one that felt really comfortable and the most obvious kind of path to me was to find some contacts that are working in schools, and I have a few already, and explore the idea of pilot testing some resources, so to start to build those relations to move this forward, to organize the pilots. The second pathway that I put there was around, actually I could just create some content and share it publicly, and then invite schools to express an interest. So that's still stepping towards making this accessible, but getting people to kind of put their hand up if they're interested. The third one felt, I guess, kind of off course for me, because it's just not something I've considered before, but why wouldn't I? Which was around collaborating with people who are already established in schools and offering something, but contributing a wellbeing element to that offering. So finding people that are already partnered, they've already got great things that they're doing, and is there something complementary that could sit alongside that? It's definitely not a pathway I'd considered before until this moment, and I thought, of course, wouldn't that be brilliant? Yeah. What about for yourself, Paul? Any pathways that are coming to mind?
So yeah, no, like I said, I was thinking back to filming it last year, and I think what the issue is, and I think many of us can fall into this trap, and I'm guilty of this trap, is this is the way we've decided we want to do it. Let's continue, let's push through, let's overcome the obstacles, and having that plan A and B, especially when we're looking for a big goal, is quite important. So I think for me, I'm trying to read 1 a week. One thing I've changed is to do more audibles rather than actual physical books. I like to get out and do walks in nature. So why don't I plug in and actually listen to a book whilst I'm walking outside in nature? Then I'm ticking off some books for that week as well. And the other way is not to be so limited to do, right, I have to read this book in this week. If I've got an audible in and I'm reading at certain points and read 2 books at the same time, that's going to help me move forward as well. So I think about different ways in which I can do this to make it more successful this year.
Fantastic. So yeah, being really flexible and moving some of those rigid barriers around 1 a week. Actually, could you mix it up and do multiple? Can you do different formats as well? There's another question which really helps me to think about my pathways, which is, if my ultimate plan wasn't possible, what is the smallest version of this goal that would still count? So is there an action that I can take that would still move me forward? But it's maybe not the pathway that I really want to pursue, or kind of looking at it to its full effect. And for me, that was number 2 on my pathways that you've got there, that I could still create some content and make it publicly available. And then people can dip into it and use it as they see fit. There's something for me that I want to achieve in terms of embedding this, working with students in schools and having a go at helping them to bring these skills to life. But it's still making it accessible if I create the content and kind of put it out there as well. So any ideas for you, Paul? If your ultimate plan wasn't available to you, is there a smaller version of this that's still working towards that goal?
In terms of small working towards it, I need to give a bit of a think. I would be happy if I hit 39. So as long as I get one more better than last year, there's some improvement. That'll be great. But no, I think just learning, getting into the habit of using my time to when I'm out in nature to listen to audibles. So I'm learning, and I'm constantly every day I'm investing some time more than I would like to in terms of growing myself. So that's the most important part of the goal. The books are just some way of trying to measure that I'm working towards developing myself.
Yes, fantastic. So you could still achieve progress by getting higher than you did last year, but the ultimate goal is to, of course, read those 52. And I know that it's a challenge that other people in my network have taken on, which links to my next question, which was thinking about our goals in terms of who has done something similar, and which parts of their approach might we be able to adapt or use to inform our own, rather than kind of inventing plans and pathways from scratch. Do you have anyone in your network who's managed to do those 52 books in the year?
No, not yet. No, I would love to find somebody that has, and to learn from them what tips and techniques have they done. So I was trying to create a bit of a mastermind as well for anybody who wanted to take on the same challenge. We get together, motivate each other, put in together a little bit of a accountability group. So if there's anybody out there that wants to take on this challenge, we're only 2 weeks in January. If you want to aim for 50, contact me. I just want that support. So yeah.
Fantastic. Or maybe they've already read 2 books, perhaps.
Yeah.
Fantastic. There was a lady in my network that was doing the 52 weeks challenge last year. I don't know if she still is, but what I loved was she was sharing like just a one sort of page review, the core things she'd taken away, which was really lovely to kind of follow along on that journey. And I guess had that sense of community perhaps with others that were doing it as well. Going back to my own goal and thinking about the question of who else has done this, and is there anything that we could kind of adapt from their approach? There's one company that I found that's doing this quite systematically in schools in the UK. I don't know a huge amount about their approach on how they've done it. I know that they got some investment that helped them along the way. And of course piloted with school as well, but I could definitely do with exploring a bit more about what worked for them, and maybe that can help to inform my pathways as well. So hopefully by now everybody that's listening and working through with us has got some form of a goal that you're motivated to achieve, and you've thought of at least 3 different pathways that you could take to get there. So just want you to invite you for a moment to engage in some visualization and really going back to that goal. And visualize yourself having achieved that goal. What does your world look like? What's going on for you in your day-to-day with that goal? How do you feel? What's new in terms of your knowledge, your approach, your way of being, perhaps? So visualizing yourself at that end state that you have achieved your goal. And once you've done that, I would like to invite you to then come back to thinking about where you are now and your reality, and to start to think about when you picture yourself following through on that goal in real life, what are the most likely things that might pull you off course? And in our visualization that we've got on our map today, that's what we're going to call our drift. The things that will crop up along the way because life is happening, that are going to pull us off course. So when you visualize yourself achieving that goal, what are the most likely things that might pull you off course? And how would you visualize those on your map? So for me, I've got a twister, a tornado that's cropped up and throwing the boat off course. We've got an octopus that's jumped up in our way, blocking our path. Maybe it's a shark. And then we've got some undercurrent as well, and drift that's taking us off course. So how would you represent your obstacles. Paul, you've mentioned a few of your own. Would you perhaps elaborate on some of those?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would like to invite everybody to share. I've seen we've got a good chunk of people tuned in. So please do share your goals. Please do engage. I would love to know what you're working on. And Carly would love to know what you're working on so we can have a good discussion on some of the stuff that you're sharing. So please drop your thoughts in the comments box if you feel comfortable. And yeah, I love that visualization you're sharing there, Carly. Because I tend to, what I'm picturing is whirlpools that try to pull you down, of course. So it's like, how do I get through those whirlpools on the way? You know, people can see sharks in the ocean as well. Yeah, it's just looking at what was those distractions last year, what got in my way last year.
What was your biggest whirlpool last year?
So my biggest whirlpool last year was getting too involved in boundaries. I need to reset boundaries in that space. Given too much of the time that I had set to read or to grow or develop myself, I was being pulled into a business project or pulled into some kind of drama that was happening within family or something like that. And I just lost my sense of peace. So it's how do I manage and navigate that a little bit better, to be a bit more firm with my boundaries, to say this is the time I'm taking to develop me.
Okay, brilliant reflection. So it's not just having the time, it's actually where the time is going, being pulled into different things. And if we can hold those boundaries firmer, that's going to help you to carve out the space to pursue the goal that you're looking at. Fantastic. Yeah. If you pop onto the next slide for me, please, Paul, just whilst others are thinking of their the things that make them drift and the obstacles that get in their way. The biggest one for me, and this shows up in lots of elements of my world, and I've represented it as the undercurrent, is waiting for the resources, the ideas that I have to feel that they are perfectly formed before trying and sharing. I always score quite low on agility in certain kind of psychometrics. And I know this about myself, that I want the resources to be brilliant. I want the questions to be perfect before taking that leap. There's a real challenge there, though, which is I don't get the feedback. So it could be not the thing that's needed all along. And there's something about jumping and needing to test some things before they're perfect and get that data. But I know that it's a vulnerability for me, I think, and needing it to feel that it's great before I jump, rather than seeing it as an experiment. Would be great to hear from others what some of your things are that drift you off course. The octopus as well in mine. Yeah, I mean, you could have a shark, you can, whatever it is that comes up for you. The octopus for me felt good because it's like it goes out in all directions. And sometimes I don't take action because if I'm reaching out cold to areas, it's not necessarily somebody from my network, then I really feel uneasy about feeling salesy. Even though this work for me it's not about money. I'm happy to do it pro bono, quite frankly. It's about the impact of the work. But yeah, just feeling like, do people perceive me to be salesy? Perhaps, again, that's a one of my scripts coming through and my limiting beliefs. Yeah, any kind of comments that are coming through, Paul? That
yeah, we've got a couple coming through. So Donna said, unfortunately, health is my obstacle and out of my control.
That's a tricky one, absolutely.
Yeah. And Cindy saying, love the octopus, symbolic of negative thoughts that might pop up in to distract me or pull me away from my goal.
I love that. So it can be symbolic of multiple thoughts there. And perhaps considering what some of those core ones are and what we can do to move those forward. That brings us on to the next step, actually, with this, which is we've identified some of those very real obstacles that can get in the way. So if we move on to the final slide with this, the idea with the hope map is to then create what we call if-then plans. So these are strategies that we put in place when we notice that we're going off course. Some of those drifts are materializing for us. What will we do to continue to take action? I think there's an important piece there, that this is not about necessarily making ourselves feel better, but it's about continuing with the action that we want to achieve. So just as an example for my own one there, the idea about perfecting and editing and re-editing resources. I've said that if I edit something more than 3 times, I'll know at that point that's probably about my own wanting to perfect rather than it necessarily needing that level of editing. So if I'm doing the editing more than 3 times, then I am going to push myself to send that resource to a contact within 48 hours. So get some feedback, get some comments, send it to somebody. It could be a contact in education to see, is this something that could be useful? So if I notice myself perfecting, then I'm going to push myself to take action immediately, even though that feels quite exposing. What about yourself, Paul? What about if you notice some of your things that are forcing you to drift? What might you do?
Yeah, and I think this is really good because you shared that bit about wanting things to be perfect before putting it out for experiment. I think one thing I have, I don't know what it's called in psychology, but I'll take it Insanity, for example. Have you heard of the DVD Insanity, the workout regime that's like 60 days? So this is just a simple example to explain what I kind of what happens to me when I'm chasing a goal. So let's just say I'm trying to do the 60-day workout, 60 days without missing a day. If I miss a day, no matter where I am on that journey, whether I'm on week 5, week 2, I have to tell myself I have to start again. I failed it. I haven't done it. I have to start again from the beginning. So again, you can see this with a book analogy. I tried it 52 last year, I only got 32. I'm trying again this year from the beginning. So I have that need to want to go back. So I think having this, thinking about how we can do things differently if something happens, and understanding that it doesn't matter if we miss a day. It's the benefit that we've got from all the days that we haven't missed going forward. So if I have missed a week on a book, not let that go into 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Pick it back up when you can, jump straight back in, which is going to be important for me going forward.
I can really see that in your example. It's a lovely example to have shared, and it really brought to life for me visually what this limiting kind of factor is for you. And it seems like it's something around the boundaries or the conditions we're putting around the goal. So am I right in thinking, Paul, that your goal is January to the end of December? So it's a calendar year.
Yeah. So I put in a calendar year as well. Yeah. So.
Okay. Could there be a different way of achieving that year goal, perhaps?
Yeah, there is. I don't have to read 52 books in a year now, as long as I aim to read 100 over 3 years, or just get to my first 100 book from when I start to count, because I don't really count my books. So,
okay.
But I really love the idea that you mentioned earlier on as well about your friend or someone in your network that's doing the 52 days and putting out reviews. Just something to kind of close the loop on the book and move forward. Could be quite little edits to just keep that motivation going.
Yeah, maybe getting some feedback from others as well that boosts our motivation to keep going. That feedback, I certainly remember commenting on a few of them, saying this is incredibly useful. It's wonderful to follow your journey, and we know that getting feedback on our goals and is really important as well. Not necessarily from others, although on this occasion it was. So getting some feedback from others and closing that loop could be good. The idea with if-then plans, this is in psychology, we call this mental contrasting with implementation intentions. So it's contrasting and visualizing the goal itself, the future state we want to get to, contrasting that with where we are now, and really thinking about some of those obstacles that will get in the way. There's another one for me that I haven't put on here that actually it's probably a huge undercurrent, if you like, which is similar to yours, Paul, focusing where I focus my time. Do I focus my time on the commercial aspects of my business, which I need to grow, or into the pro bono work? And somebody said to me recently, it's very easy to get a few years down the line and not have achieved the thing you really want to because you've put your attention, somewhere else. So how do you keep it front and center of mind? So when we get those obstacles, the idea is to then put those implementation intentions in place so we can see that the obstacle is likely to crop up and it keeps us moving forward. Would love to hear again any examples in the chat of others, what you might do if one of your obstacles crops up and gets in the way. And the final part then of this is thinking about, so we've got our goal, we've got our 3 pathways, we've started to identify some obstacles that will get in the way and what we might do with those. So again, if we were to put this in a numerical kind of question, on a scale of 0 to 10, how confident are you that you could take the first step on this map towards your goal? So what might your first step be? What is the very first action that you could take in the next week to move this goal forward? Any ideas for yourself, Paul, what your steps are?
So I've already stepped forward into this goal of development. So you know, I had a little bit of read this morning with a coffee before I jumped onto this. So it's just
Fantastic.
it's building habits. I need to focus on the habit and consistency. That's the area I need to focus, which we're going on to later on today as well. So I'm really looking forward to Vijaya's session as well that feeds off the back end of this. What about yourself?
The first step for myself is probably choosing one tool. It could even be this tool. Hope mapping is a great way of based in positive psychology, thinking about how we move goals forward. It could even be this tool and just sharing it with a contact. So I already had a conversation last year with one school about pilot testing, and they were very willing to have a go and kind of expressed interest. I just haven't shared a resource with them yet. Why? Because I've been waiting for it to be perfect. So perhaps I share this resource with them and say, this is how it works for individuals. What do you think? I know it's been tested empirically with schools as well. So there's no reason really, is there, why not to have a go? So yeah, the action I'll take, I'm going to commit to right now, is to share this content with the school that already said they were interested in a pilot.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you accountable to that. So I'll be checking in.
You can. I think I'll do it after this so I don't forget. Yeah, no, do hold me accountable. I think, you know, having accountability partners, of course, is very important as well. But you know, I'm laughing, sort of chuckling as I'm saying that out loud, because isn't it silly how sometimes we can really hold ourselves back? I've already got a contact that said they're interested, and I've got, you know, multiple resources that I'm sure would do wonderful things for some of the students that would have the opportunity to engage in that. I just haven't been brave enough yet to do it. So I need to take the leap. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the hope map, and again, if you're a coach, this is something that you can use with your coachees as well. So you can use visualization within it, but traditional hope maps are just done on a blank page, could be an A4 page. On the right hand side, you specify the goal. On the left, the pathways that we can kind of look at across the page, and then we plant on there the obstacles and the strategies and plans as well. So do have a go if you're a coach at doing this with some of your clients as well. So just to kind of summarize maybe, and we can get some people sharing some of their goals or strategies, I encourage you to think about one word or a visual that could represent your goal. So we visualized it with a sunset today, but what's one word or visual that might represent your goal? Perhaps you could label and share one obstacle that stood out for you, or one thing that might help you to sustain momentum there as well. So 3 different things to consider. How would you represent your goal? What's one obstacle that could get in your way? And one thing that will help you to keep moving forward as well.
Beautiful, reflective questions there, Carly. I love that.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any comments?
There's a few coming in, yeah. So Cindy saying great strategy, Carly. Revising more than 3 times. Send it to someone for fresh eyes.
Yeah, it's forcing myself to take the action that scares me a little bit. But I guess there's a reframe there for me about getting the comment. The comment, as you say, is important. And those fresh eyes, that's data that can tell me if this is useful. It's feedback. It can tell me if it's useful, or tell me actually where I might want to focus my attention, rather than drifting for the sake of it, which is my own comfort and not necessarily useful. Yeah, so trying to force myself to step into that vulnerability, but in a way that doesn't feel so exposing, I guess.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And I can resonate with what you're saying there, Collie. It's happened to me on a number of occasions as well. We've got Donna that's brought in singles like driving from A to B. The chances are you will hit different speed limits, 20 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour. So to be conscious of this and keep going as you will reach your destination.
What a beautiful analogy. Yeah, and really relatable. Of course, we will hit those different speed limits. It doesn't mean that we're going off course, but kind of keep going. How does that one feel for you, Paul, with your book challenge?
Yeah, no, I think it feels good. Yeah, and I think one thing I always like to think about what motivates me with goals is that not every goal we set are meant to be attained or meant to be reached. But if you stretch it, it makes us achieve more than we would. So before last year, I was reading 1 book a month, sometimes 2. So I was getting about 20 to 24 books. If I hadn't stretched myself to go for 52, I would never have read 38 last year. So I think sometimes it's just goal set direction, and sometimes the goal changes when we're on that path to A to B, or whether we hit an obstacle. Sometimes we think, actually, this is not the destination I want to go. I want to pivot and move over here now. But just moving that way forward allows us to start to see other options. So
yeah, absolutely. And I guess that links back into Donna's comment there. The speed limit can change, but we're still on the path to the destination. I think you said originally this is about how you show up as an individual. It's about the knowledge that you bring, and you're absolutely achieving that by stretching yourself to 38 as opposed to where you were before. So a slightly higher speed limit if we continue with the analogy, but not necessarily the full throttle 70 miles an hour. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, so with myself, I guess one way of kind of visualizing the goal for me, do you know that the real visual that comes to mind is my own children. That's why I started to pursue this area of myself. There's a lot of positive psychology tools that I use in corporate spaces, and the resounding feedback from people is usually, wow, I wish I knew this earlier on in my life. And it started to get me to think about my children. So my visual was thinking about my children and what it might look like for them if they have these tools and their peers as well. Labeling and sharing that one obstacle for me. The one obstacle for me, I think, is that undercurrent massively. And I've just expressed that by saying, what's the next action? I've already got somebody who's willing. I've just been sitting in the undercurrent, waiting for the resource to feel perfect or the timing to feel perfect. So yeah, that's the big one for me. And the action, I guess, is to try and move it forward as quickly as possible. When I notice it, what's something I can do immediately in the next 48 hours that just moves me forward. So that's the way to keep my momentum.
Brilliant. And we've got a question that's just popped up in the comments. I don't know if you want to tackle this one, Carly. So Jane's saying, in your journey, how do you handle unforeseen obstacles, for example, health?
That's a great question. So yeah, the unforeseen things that pop up for us individually. So personally, how I kind of handle those. There's something around the framing of the goal, first of all, and coming back to what matters here. And sometimes those unforeseen obstacles can push us into a different space with some different priorities, and that's absolutely okay. So I guess going back to reevaluate what feels important for me right now to be putting my attention to. One of the original questions we looked at earlier around if the original goal was unattainable for some reason, what's the smallest form of this that would still move it forward? So if it is still something that feels important, is there a way of changing the scale or changing a pathway which still enables me to move forward in this space, but not necessarily on the original path or my preferred path of doing this? So there's some strategies that I kind of use, and I guess rooted within that is some self-compassion. It's not, we can't plan for everything. Things will crop up and take us off course, and sometimes we have to go with those. What about for yourself, Paul?
Yeah, and I think a couple of tips just to add to that is one that Donna brought in. I love, she mentioned the 20 to 70. Sometimes it's just a case of slowing down on that route. And I always, for me, when I'm setting out to achieve goals, no matter how big or how small, I always have this positive anchor that I keep within, that it's not on my time, it's on the universe's time, God's time, whatever our faith and belief is in. It's, and sometimes I think obstacles and when our signals in our health start to hit it, it's for a reason to slow us down. We're not supposed to go so quickly. I think everything happens at the right timing. And I found that with my own goals. So it's, I'm putting the pressure on to deliver it by this date, this date, this date. I think the time-bound part of SMART can really affect our health. So it's just slowing things down and and believing you'll get to that destination at the time that's right for you. So.
Absolutely. And thank you for a wonderful question there, Jane. Just reflecting on that again, it comes back to something that one of the questions that you had in your session around the strength that comes from some of those darker moments. And in some of my work in the corporate spaces, we actually encourage people to think about big disrupting patterns, boundaries that might force you to shift the way that you're operating. In a business, it can be really thinking about things like, if you couldn't sell to your current customers, then what would you do then? And we call that disruptive questions, disruptive thinking. It's forcing the parameters to change, to look at new pathways, but also the growth that can come from that. And of course, something like health is very personal, and if it's a negative health event, then that's going to be really tough for an individual. But sometimes that change of direction can actually be a good thing, and there can be some growth that comes from that we hadn't anticipated as well. So I think it's a fantastic question to put out there for individuals to consider.
And I love that, Corey, as well, that disruptive, kind of like also a bit of a risk analysis in there as well. We never do that for ourselves. We always do that with an organization, to look at RAG and red, amber, green, and we're looking to set out certain projects and goals. Maybe there's something there for ourselves to say, how do I foresee the risks? What could potentially happen? Like you said, what could disrupt this journey that I'm on? And that's something I've never sat and done personally myself.
It's curiosity in practice, and a fantastic kind of challenge for all of us. It's difficult for us to engage in that, though, because we've got, usually by that point, we've got clarity on where we want to go and the pathway, the best way to do this. It's forcing our brains to consider this from a different angle. If we could not do this, actually, I saw something yesterday that's coming around in the health sector, which is called Jane's Law, and it is it's a tool for doctors to force themselves to consider a different diagnosis area, perhaps. When somebody's been back a few times, it's the idea of making your brain consider this from a different angle. What might be there? And in business, we talk about disrupting your model before somebody else disrupts it, and the market disrupts it. Yeah, so something to consider, Paul.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting. I need to look into that. Sounds exciting. Brilliant. There's a few other comments that are coming through here, Carl, as well. I'll bring these in if we've still got a bit of time, so it's okay. Getting back on track rather than dwelling on the misses is the key. I think accountability partner helps us here. I love the anchoring part as well. So thank you for sharing that, Vijaya. Carl, I don't know if you've got any comments for Vijaya on that.
Yeah, just again, really resonate with what's being said there, and some great thoughts about how do we get back on track. I really have to challenge myself with my if-then plans when I'm using hope mapping, is to think about what is the action that will force me to just move and in some way get back on track, or just take a step in the right direction. As I say, those plans are not necessarily about making ourselves feel better. And I love the point there about not dwelling on the misses. It's not about necessarily getting right with it and feeling okay with the misses, but what is the action that will take us back on track? And accountability partners absolutely always help me if there's something that I know I really want to do, making sure I share that with somebody and invite them to keep me accountable as well. Yeah. What about you, Paul?
So now I copy and paste everything you said there. There's not much more that I can add in terms of that. I think you've covered it all. But no, I love the accountability groups as well. I think groups can be more beneficial. I think for me, I found the magic number when it comes to accountability is 3, because sometimes you have one partner. If they let you down, if they can't make it, if they miss a week, if you've got the other person to bounce off, so the 3 of you can work together. So having that accountability function can be really helpful. So no, thank you for sharing that, Vijay. And getting back on track on this it's important to let them go. Look and learn why did we miss that? What was the learn here? What can I take forward? But then just letting it go after we've done that and moving on to where we want to go from there. And then Vijay's also shared here, Carly, as well, that I think in goal setting we don't generally add in buffer or allow for misses. This aspect isn't spoken about.
Mm-hmm. Again, I really resonate with that. I think it's a fantastic reflection to be sharing in there. I think this is one of the key challenges with goal setting in general, is that quite often we do it in a bit of a vacuum, and imagine those perfect sort of circumstances, and we're so motivated and we can see it. But absolutely, there will be misses, there will be pathways that don't work, there will be bits that get in the way and take us off course. And actually, a hope map is, you can treat it as a live document that you come back to, you revise. If one pathway isn't working, is it time to change course and try something else? Maybe it is about redefining the goal, maybe there's a different direction, but certainly about understanding that, yeah, there will be misses, there will be things that get in the way, there'll be bits that don't work. What do we do with that? How do we kind of keep moving forward? I think it's a really important thing to have shared. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Carly. Brilliant. And that's it in the comments for now. It's a bit quiet.
Okay,
so people are reflecting and thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough one, isn't it, to set a goal on the spot, but hopefully some questions and tools there to get you thinking about a goal that you want to move forward. And please do share in the comments if you have a goal in mind or something that comes out for you in the session. Yeah, so that's the hope map. As I say, it's a tool that can be used for yourself with goals. It can be revised, it can be used with your coaches as well. But would love to hear kind of after the session if anybody's found it useful and the way they're using it.
Brilliant. Cindy's saying here, great tools, Carly. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much.
And I love this session, Carly. It's been really great. I think, it's sometimes we just decide what we want and that's it. This is what I want to achieve. We don't give any thought analysis. We don't look at the pathways. We don't look at the agency which you shared today. We kind of stop at SMART, and that's about as far as we go. And I think this really gives a whole new perspective and a positive lens for people to look at goal setting to really make it more sustainable and help them move forward. So thank you for everything you shared in this. It's really, really great. Great tool that you brought today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful being with you all, and thank you for the questions and the reflections as well. They've got me thinking differently also. So thank you very much.
So there's a few more. Do you have a few more slides for me to move on to?
I think that there's one more at the end, which is just about connecting and continuing the conversation.
Okay, excellent. I'll move on to that so people can have a chance to scan your QR code and talk about, see if there's any more questions. If you do have any questions for Carly, please drop them in the comments box. As you can see, she's full of expertise, knowledge, wisdom. This is your chance to ask your questions to her directly. But please, if you're watching this on the replay, also drop them in the comments box. But if you want to connect with Carly's details on the screen. She's got her Instagram linked in there. As she mentioned, she's a psychologist, organizational psychologist, plenty of expertise in the area of psychology, and she's now a director of the Mind Strong Hub. Carly, if there's anything you want to add on today, I just want to put you out there so people can start to scan and connect with you on social media.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, just an invite to connect really and continue the conversation. As you can see from the image there, I love a coffee and a chat. So if anybody wants to connect and kind of continue thinking about this tool or others that are similar, I love the conversation. I love the challenge and the invite to think differently as well. So informal conversations are always good. The Instagram is new. This is another goal of mine and my business partners, which is to try and make some of the psychology models and tools that we know really accessible and usable for individuals. So we will be shortly sharing videos and information on Instagram to help individuals to think about some of these tools and how they can use them. So if you want more, then do follow along, perhaps keep me accountable as well to keep going.
Excellent. Please do. I would encourage everybody to scan the QR codes there and start to connect. And I believe now, and correct me, anybody who's watching wrong, you can screenshot this and you can come and you can actually click the QR code after the session as well. So take a screenshot. I think mobiles allow us to do that these days. And so there's lots of love coming in for you, Carly. Jane saying this was a refreshing way to look at goals. Thank you. And Cindy saying, well done, taking the leap to self-employment.
Thank you both. Yeah, it's wonderful, scary also, but really excited to take things forward in the direction that I want to go. So thank you so much.
No, brilliant. And I'm looking forward to following you on that journey, Carly, and seeing where it takes you. Because you do some incredible work. You have done incredible work, and looking forward to seeing more of that. It's going to be brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Well, keep me accountable, and perhaps we can have a conversation next year and see what's happened in this year for each of us as well.
No,
see where
brilliant.
the year's taken us. Thank you.
No, excellent. So thank you. So any final words, Carly, for our audience today? I see we're coming to the hour and questions are quite quiet.
No, I guess an invite really to, if you've got goals, if you've got things that you're trying to consider, is to look in the positive psychology space at the frameworks and models that are out there. Positive psychology, I think, has got such an undercurrent around it, and perhaps some misinterpretation of what it's about. It really is about when people are thriving in these spaces, what are they doing? So when people are setting goals and it's working and they're achieving them, what are the things that are helping them to get there? And that's where the hope map kind of comes from. There are plenty of other tools and models that can be super useful from positive psych. So really encourage you to have a look and let's have a chat about some bits if you're interested, and share ideas. Thank you.
Brilliant. So please do reach out. Please scan the QR codes. Carly, I want to say a huge thank you for pulling this presentation together, for taking us through such a useful and powerful tool that we can apply for our goals. But not just 2026. Whenever we're watching this, as I mentioned yesterday, as we keep mentioning, if you were finding us in August, September this year, it doesn't have to be January. When you see this tool can help you reset and refocus. So Carly, thank you so much for bringing this. Thank you for your questions, for walking us through a really fantastic tool. I really appreciate your time on a Sunday as well. So thank you so much for being here, and a huge thank you to everybody who's tuned in, who's engaged, for your comments, your questions, and those that are sitting back quietly. I can see we've had a good constant number of people tuned in today. So hopefully you're reflecting, you're taking away a lot of what Carly has shared today. So thank you for being here. And if you're watching the replay, please do drop your comments in the question box. And next we have looking and preparing our future self. So we're going to have Cindy Blekaitis step up on the stage and start to talk about how we start to visualize our future self. So we're going to take a half-an-hour break. We're going to be back at 11:30 p.m. UK. Looking forward to building on what Carly shared here in terms of the goals. So stepping into looking at who we need to become in order to deliver these goals. A little bit about self-belief, a little bit taking this a little bit further on who we need to be. So again, thank you so much, Carly. Really appreciate your time today. It's been an absolutely wonderful session. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Looking forward to seeing you all very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.